in the financial markets world here in Uganda. And number one story, we're going to kick off with Mr. Paul Bwiso, who is the chairperson of, who is the chairman of Uganda Securities Exchange, the chief executive officer, sorry, of the Uganda Securities Exchange, who noted that the Uganda Securities Exchange has increased in the number of investors from over 38,000 to 130,000. Now, speaking during the admission of Cheaper Technologies as a stockbroker in Kampala on Monday, Mr. Paul Bwiso noted with thanks that the listed companies have registered improved profitability with, of course, due to the growth in the number of investors, which had for years been stagnated at 38,000. The companies on the stock exchange have registered increased profitability according to the CEO, and they say that they want to see more deals in the market and still need to see an increase in the dealership and reforms. He said, noting the fact that the numbers have increased from 38,000 to 130,000. Cheaper Technologies, as a stock brokerage company, promises increase in stock trading, and the Uganda Securities Exchange has seen a very slow growth in the companies that are listed in terms of activity as well, with only attracting only 18 listings in its 25 years of existence. Miss Miriam Ekirapa Musali, who is the Capital Markets Authority Director, Legal and Board Affairs, said a section of equity markets such as the secondary market has remained muted, but government was working on the reforms to increase activity within the bond market. And he said that they are in the process of amending the Capital Markets Act so that they can have friendlier laws for participants in the market. Cheaper Technologies, which trades as Cheaper Cash, has previously run into trouble with the Capital Markets Authority, which in April has published a notice warning Ugandans against dealing with the company because it was yet to fulfill regulatory requirements. However, Mr. Dan Tumuramye, who is the Cheaper Technologies Managing Director, said now that the company has fulfilled all the regulatory requirements, it will seek to ease access to the financial markets as well as diversifying portfolios. And he said that the admission of Cheaper Cash Technologies on the Uganda Securities Exchange is a significant milestone, and that Uganda remains an important hub for the company. And of course, they are committed to providing a largely undeserved demographic access to products in the financial markets, and of course ensure financial inclusivity. In March, Mr. Samuel Abedgui, who is a concerned citizen, petitioned the Capital Markets Authority over licensing Cheaper Technologies in 2021 to invest in the United States stock market, and wondering how Cheaper Cash would go ahead to invite Ugandans to invest in the global stocks without having issued a prospectus. Mr. Bedgui, who also noted that the Cheaper Cash Technologies had obtained a brokerage license from the Capital Markets Authority, yet had not utilized it and was not involved in any brokerage business at the Uganda Securities Exchange. According to Mr. Byarugaba Richard, who is the USE chairman of the Uganda Securities Exchange chairman and the National Social Security Fund managing director, there is need to strengthen the capital markets in Uganda, which in turn will create capital for businesses within the nation. That is the story, of course, coming in from the Uganda Securities Exchange. On Monday, we had a very wonderful occasion when Chipak Technologies was licensed and enrolled into the Uganda Securities Exchange to be a stock broker. Like the report says, there has been before wrangles between the Chipper Cash Technologies and the Capital Markets Authority, that of course following the petition of Mr. Samuel Abedgui, who said that the Chipper Cash should not have been, of course, given permission to be able to allow people to trade on stocks in the United States without having issued a prospectus. Remember, one of the key issues that is looked at during enrollment into the Uganda Securities Exchange as either a listed company or a stock brokerage firm is the prospectus. That document that contains, for example, the number of shares, how much they are valued at, and so many other details is one of the things that is critically analyzed by the exchange before enrolling you into their system. And Mr. Samuel was saying actually Chipper did not do this, so they didn't have the full requirements to carry out their trade. However, on Monday, it seems everything was finally sorted with Chipper Cash officially now listed as one of the stock brokerage firms in Uganda, and of course still offering stocks across the world, especially from the United States. But now I think we're going to see it even get more involved in the local market. So what are you waiting for? The markets are getting moving, more people are getting on board, and this is what we want to see for you and me. Get up and start moving, start buying some stocks. You've heard from the chairman himself, Mr. Paul Bwiso, that we had only about 38,000 investors. But currently, we are talking 130,000 investors. And therefore, people have realized how important it is to actually have a stock market that is running, to have shares within companies, and to be able to trade and do some trading within the stock market. So following this report, definitely it's a green light for you and me to be able to get involved in these very active markets and get them moving so that our economy can improve. Remember, even companies are very key in this. If you have a company and you're out there and you think you're making good money, but you still want to make bigger money, you're looking for capital, the capital markets are here to help you get this very cheap capital, because they will not ask for any interest on the money that you're giving them. The only thing they will do is just to give you the money and, of course, entrust that you're going to grow the value of that money. That's the only point. That's the big point in the middle. So when you are a company and you're out there and you want to list on the exchange, there are listing rules, of course, to be followed. The Capital Markets Authority Act stipulates each of those rules. You can also visit the website at www.use.org.ug, and you can see some of those listing rules. If you qualify, please go ahead and list your company and get some of this accessible, cheap capital for you, and get the company off the ground into the skies. And that is, of course, putting the reports of the Uganda Securities Exchange to very added use. Now, let's move across now to DFCU Bank. Remember, DFCU is one of the listed companies. DFCU recorded a full growth in the revenues and a fall in the profits. Now, according to the interim report for the first half of 2022, DFCU revenues increased to over 187.39 billion from 177.33 billion, which signifies a healthier revenue position compared to the same period last year. DFCU recorded a substantial increase in revenue for the 6 months ended June, and according to this interim report, during the period, operating expenses remained flat at 85.1 billion shillings, while operating income before impairment improved to 100.69 billion from 86.63 billion shillings. Customer deposits increased from 2.3 trillion in the same period in 2021 to 2.4 trillion. That is while loans and advances dropped to 1.3 trillion from 1.6 trillion in 2021. The total comprehensive income dropped to 20.219 billion from 443.226 billion. However, profits before tax dropped to 25.625 billion from 49.9 billion recorded within this same period in 2021. Whereas when you look at their net profit for this period stood at 18.7 billion shillings compared to 38.8 billion shillings. And during the period, DFCU's total assets reduced to 3.29 trillion compared to 3.35 trillion within the first half of 2021. Whereas during this period, their borrowing increased to 28.35 billion from 14.98 billion within the same period. The recoveries on the loans previously written off stood at 433 million Ugandan shillings compared to 778 million in 2021. Shareholders' equity decreased to 614.24 billion, while from that of 636.24 billion, while the net asset value per share stood at 821.03 from 850.42 billion shillings. That is Ugandan shillings. And then the report also does not indicate whether the directors have recommended interim dividends for the period or not. That is DFCU Bank there. It's been a while since they last declared a dividend, and of course, now, of course, as they release these reports, probably something could come up, but nothing has yet been confirmed by the directors on whether or not we shall have a dividend issued on these of these reports or not. And definitely we shall keep you posted on that story as well. And yes, that brings us to the end of that story there at DFCU Bank. If you're a shareholder there, you can check out their annual report on their website at DFCU Bank, and you will be able to see the details of their second quarter performance details. Now, moving away from that, now Mr. Bahati, who is the State Trade Minister, Mr. David Bahati, says that banks should reduce interest rates and stop giving excuses. The State Minister for Industry and, of course, that is Mr. David Bahati, has asked financial institutions to stop the excuses and reduce the interest rates. Speaking at the launch of the $6 billion Equity Bank Group revolving fund under its African Economic Recovery and Resilience Plan to finance the private sector in Kampala last Friday, Mr. Bahati said the only factor banks should be considering now when administering loans should be to lower interest rates as well as providing patient capital to support private sector investments. The Ugandan economy, he said, currently stands at 44 billion United States dollars, yet government can only release 12 trillion shillings, with the balance coming through the budget support and borrowing. Therefore, he said that there is need to create a window for patient and affordable long-term capital to support the private sector growth, for which the government is facilitating a number of ways, such as through creating industrial parks across the country. Commercial banks are having a lot of excuses, as according to Mr. David Bahati, and the excuses are running out. It is time to consider lowering the interest rates. He said, noting that in the past, inflation, the central bank's key rates have been low, yet commercial bank interest rates remain high, which inhibits investors from accessing credit to enhance and expand their business operations. Mr. David Bahati also indicated that in the next 5 years, government will develop 5 industrial parks, which with the necessary infrastructure, which will be available for investors. The Equity Bank Group Africa Economic Recovery and Resilience Plan seeks to finance 5 million businesses and 25 million households to create 50 million jobs, both directly and indirectly in Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Congo, and Tanzania, as well as South Sudan there. During the same event, the Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Mr. Right Honorable Thomas Tayebwa, said the challenges with many businesses in Uganda is the lack of affordable capital, which has been worsened by the high interest rates. And the biggest problem, of course, will be addressed by the biggest solution. He said that he noted also that in total, Africa imports goods that are worth over $547 billion US annually. Yet, if local investors are supported through provision of patient capital, Africa can move away from exporting the raw material and adding value to it, so it can produce some of these goods. Mr. James Mwangi earlier, Dr. James Mwangi earlier, the Equity Group Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, had argued that interest rates are market determined and are dependent on a number of factors, which include sovereignty risk, the foreign exchange rate, and as well as the rate of inflation, in addition to the costs of operation, which he said continues to be high across Africa. Dr. Mwangi also indicated that the fund targets key sectors of the economy, among which include agriculture, which will receive an allocation of over 30% of the 134 trillion Ugandan shillings, manufacturing and logistics, trade and investments, micro, small and medium enterprises, with manufacturers accessing credit at over 15% of the entire 134 trillion. Of course, those were the top stories here. And of course, thank you for watching Financial Markets. My name is Anthony. I'll catch you tomorrow, same time, same place. Remember to save some money and get it invested. See you tomorrow. Bye.